Okay, first, let me welcome everyone for coming back here. This is delightful for me to see all of you here. Now, what I'm going to do today to get started is to give you a very simple idea of what this whole seminar is about. Not just today, but this is our fourth session. And to put it very simply, the basic idea is knowledge of human behavior has never been integrated. There is sociology, anthropology, political science, economics, history. And within each one, that would be separate enough. It's not integrated, but within each of these fields, there are subsections. Within sociology, there are no less than 53 sections. It's hard to even imagine what could they be. Theory, methods, economic sociology, political sociology, racism, sexism, 53 not integrated. Within psychology, 56. The same in the other fields. Now, let me go back in time to explain a little bit what is going on, why this has occurred. I'm going back to the middle of the 19th century. This was a time of the industrialization of Europe. Tremendous problems, movement from the farm to the factory, little children chained to machines. If you've ever read Dickens about how horrible the Industrial Revolution was there. And so Auguste Comte, a French philosopher, envisioned a new science called sociology. And he thought the following. No, at that time, physics and chemistry were doing pretty damn well. They were exploring the universe, finding all kinds of scientific laws. Science was on the march. Then he envisioned, well, physics and chemistry are pretty simple compared to biology, more complicated, life. Well, he said, he thought there were going to be stages here. We're starting with the simpler sciences, moving to a more complex biology, and then human behavior. A science, he envisioned, a science that would be powerful enough to solve the tremendous problems of industrialization. I'm starting with that because there's a parallel there. We don't have things so great now, as you well know, with problems like climate change, nuclear warfare, racism, sexism, ageism, ethnocentrism, etc., 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 etc. So we desperately need, what he envisioned, a powerful science of human behavior. That's what this seminar is all about. Because what happened was, unfortunately, physics and chemistry did well and are doing well. Biology is doing pretty well and is doing well. But what happened to a science of human behavior? Well, it went off the rails. Because what you had when I described just at the very beginning the specialization, why was it such specialization? Because that's the way the world developed. Societies are specialized, the different fields of knowledge. And physics and chemistry were specialized. Of course, they were simpler, so that you had something like mathematics that could integrate things very well. But for social science, no. People in social science didn't have the scientific background to tell them, you have to stand on the shoulders of giants. That's a phrase from Isaac Newton. The nature of the scientific method, you stand on the shoulders not just of a specialized group of giants, all relevant giants. Well, my background, I was a pre-medical student at Columbia, and I was on the tennis team. Someone said to me, audit this course by this guy named C. Wright Mills, a sociologist. Let me read to you from his most famous book. I was so fortunate to get close to him. His most famous book called The Sociological Imagination, and that should be a clue as to focus. A group doesn't have an imagination. An individual has an imagination. His most famous book was rated by the members of the International Sociological Association at the end of the 20th century as the second most influential book for sociologists of the entire 20th century. The first one was Max Weber's book. Max Weber was one of the originators early in sociology. So what did he do? Well, let me read from pages 40 to 41. And this is repetitive for some of you, and I apologize for that. But this is the way I can pull it all together. And I had an image of him, and earlier, remember him on the motorcycle coming in to Columbia. Get this approach, a real scientific approach to human behavior. The sociological imagination is the capacity to shift from one perspective to another, from the political to the psychological, from examination of a single family to comparative assessment of the national budgets of the world, from the theological school to the military establishment, from considerations of an oil industry to studies of contemporary poetry. Well, all that is a beginning. And as I develop this, it's really going to be up to us in this room, here, not just me, to carry it forward. Because think of what's involved here. Think of what we're after now. The whole world, over your whole life history, has emphasized the specialization in society and social science. It's in your blood, it's in your bones, it's in mine. To be able to move beyond that, to develop that sociological imagination carried further, so that there is, what I'm after is nothing less than a new social science. Now let me trace the development, because it's not an easy thing what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is putting together a powerful science of human behavior. This was the vision of Auguste Comte. Something that could solve problems like climate change, nuclear warfare, aggression. Let me give you one illustration from the book of why I am confident that pulling knowledge together can, in fact, I'm going to focus on aggression as this one example from the book. Is it possible, really? Well, the basic idea I'm putting forward is this. It is ignorance that rules the world, not evil. And if we can get rid of the ignorance, we can have a better world. So in particular, now, this example, a student of mine named Jack Levin, and the Levin experiment is in the book on pages like 140 or something like that. What he did, this was my best student at Cornell. And the focus was on prejudice against some minority group. He saw prejudice as an example of aggression. Now think of prejudice, it's maybe a big stretch, but prejudice, hating others, aggression, not so far removed here. If you can figure out what causes aggression, wow. And what he did was it was an experiment, before and after. Okay. He measured he worked with students in introductory sociology, 2 classes. He gave them a before test of their degree of prejudice against a minority group. Then, what he did was he also gave them a test. This was early in the semester, so they forgot it afterwards. He asked them about questions about, when you get a grade, do you compare your grade with other students or the class average, or do you compare your grade with your own previous grades? A minority compared with their own previous grades. You see, what I'm getting at is they're developmentally oriented, whereas the others were not developmentally. They were going along with the outward orientation of our way of life, which is love is the answer, loving others, not loving yourself and others. No. So, what happened? Then he frustrated them, which is similar to what we all experience in life in the modern world. There's so many frustrations. He gave them a phony aptitude test for graduate school. It was a vocabulary test. He delighted in making up words that didn't exist. He flunked them miserably, and he even, during the test, he was explaining how people at other universities were doing so much better. They were passing tremendously. And after the whole experiment was done, he asked them if they thought it was phony or correct, and they were sucked in. He had the deans coming in to give it credibility. He did everything he could, and it was realistic for them. Then, of course, the people who compared their grades to others increased their prejudice. The ones who compared their grades, they had nothing to lose. They were on a stairway rather than a seesaw, and so they did not increase their prejudice. I'm making such a fuss over this one example because it illustrates the power of ideas to be able to change aggression. Now, of course, this is just one tiny little study about prejudice and so on. You can say, well, big deal. But it points in the direction that we're going, which is development of the self, knowledge of the self, ability to develop oneself will take away from aggression. Aggression, you stay down with the person you're putting down. If you're on a stairway, you have nothing to gain from aggression because it doesn't do anything for you. It impairs you from developing yourself. Okay, I wanted to use that example to show the power of knowledge. Now, what I want to do right now is a little more systematic. I want to go back to Auguste Comte and take it further and further into the present and then the future, because there are so many steps we are going to have to take. And the reason why I'm saying we, let me explain that. The way the scientific method works is publications are the major thing. And if you're not published, you're nothing. Like, in order to get advancement, forget about whether you're a good teacher in general. For most higher level academic institutions, I mean, there are many that are okay with teaching is important, but for the Ivy Leaguers and so on, how many publications do you have? Now, publications are fine. They illustrate a lot of knowledge. I'm not putting them down, but I'm saying in addition to publications about human behavior, there is your experience, mine, yours, don't get published. Well, we can publish them ourselves. This is the book that I have a title for it. We're going to go for it. I'm giving you a preview of some of the things I'm going to talk about more systematically. But we are going to work toward creating a new social science. The new social science is going to include pointing toward all knowledge of human behavior. It's what Auguste Comte dreamed about, the power of knowledge. This even goes back to ancients like Socrates, who felt the problem of the world is knowledge and ignorance. Now, so many ideas emphasize evil rather than ignorance. That's what I'm saying. It's a simpler way of understanding. It's a very democratic, humanistic way of understanding. People are not born haters. People are born open to learning. And if they become haters, they learn it from society, from others. Now, something else can be taught. All right, let me go back more systematically. I'm looking at my watch too here. We have plenty of time, but I'm going to give you steps from Auguste Comte to the seminar to the future. I'm going to give you a series of steps. We'll need all of those steps because it's very difficult to do what we're trying to do. We have developed a self-image that's limited. The movers and shakers of the world are up there. We're not Einstein, we're not this. But the idea behind all of this, every human being is fantastic. And let me give a couple of examples from published knowledge to illustrate why am I so convinced every human being is so fantastic. I'm going to start with knowledge from physics and biology and anthropology. And here's what I'm going to say here. What is the nature of our universe here? The entire physical universe. Well, whatever else it is not possible to isolate any part of the universe from any other part. Just impossible. That's the nature of our universe, is interactive. It may take 1 billion years to get from one particle influencing another, but still interactive. Now, who are we as human beings with our complicated language? We are the most interactive creatures in the entire known universe. We are the crest of the universe. So our potential, the individual I'm talking about, not the group, the individual. Okay, here's another example from biological science, this one, and from anthropology. It's the same kind of thing. all other organisms in the known universe must go through a generational change for a major learning, Darwinian evolution from one generation to the next. We are different. We don't have to wait for deep learning to wait for our children to be better, to be able to understand more than we. Learning, but deep learning is possible. Fundamental, you can even think of you can think of personal evolution, not just learning. So this is just very quick, but the idea I'm putting forward is that the basic knowledge from the physical and biological sciences, taking into account the importance of language, of course, our complex language, makes us extremely special in terms of all other organisms, all other phenomena throughout the known universe. How do we actually, here's the question though, the big, big question. We have that capacity. How do we fulfill it? Now I'm going to get to the sequence that we're into. We're in a process here. The seminar is just takes us a little bit. I'm talking about the future as well, because we're going to continue this on a monthly basis. I'll announce it to you so you'll know how it's going to work. But there is a future where we're going to continue to develop ourselves. And, you know, some of us will drop out, whatever. But it's also possible that we can, in fact, develop and bring in other people. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm going to ask is that everyone here, if you are into this thing, bring a friend next time. That we need more and more people to get into this. Okay, now I'm going into the sequence, going way back from August Comte to the present, the seminar, to the future. Here's where we're going. And so many steps are necessary, essential, because, wow, we're trying to change our self-image. Imagine who tries to change self-image? I mean, it's rather difficult. All I can say is, I've changed mine. If I've changed mine dramatically, not just slightly, I used to be quite different. I'm not a Superman or any special person. Everyone is pretty much the same. If I can do it, everyone can do it. It can be taught. All right, here we go with the sequence. I'm going to go way back, even way before Auguste Comte. Francis Bacon, the originator, or one of the key originators of the scientific method back in the 16th century. I have taken all knowledge to be my province. Wow. Way back when. Socrates, St. Luke's, Voltaire, Funakashi, Pogo, page 10, all of them. For example, Funakashi was a martial arts originator. First know yourself, then know others. And Voltaire, cultivate your own garden. Pogo, we have met the enemy and they are us. I mean, so many people in the past, well known, have pointed to the individual, the potential power. But to talk about that and to do it, wow. I mean, our textbook makes a big stride forward, but it's still, we have a ways to go here. What else? Isaac Newton, standing on the shoulders of giants. The idea of science. Science has changed the world, but we've not realized the potential of a science of human behavior, which was the vision of Auguste Comte. We get to C. Wright Mills. We're still moving toward the present. He had that vision, but it's a long way from that quote and his book to what we're after. But he was pointing in the right direction. Then we have the book that you have is unique. It pulls together so much knowledge from all over the place. And what I've tried to do in giving out some of these pages is a more systematic approach to the book. Because, for example, the way the book was written, 3 years ago it was published. You had 2 chapters on intellect, 2 chapters on emotions, and 2 chapters on action, like The Wizard of Oz, head, heart, hand. But at the time it was written, it wasn't as clear in my mind or my co-authors, hey, let's focus on head in the first 2 and not get off into heart and hand so much. And then in the second, let's focus on heart and not get into head and hand. There wasn't as much of a focus, so that's why I was giving out some of these extra pages so that you'll see more of a focus. And I pulled together in each of the chapters the way it was divided into not just the focus as it should have been, but other things. But now I understand things better. And so the new book can be more powerful because it can be more systematic. So what else is new? Well, there's the book, which I don't want to downgrade it so much because I'm extremely proud of it. It covers a huge amount of knowledge that has never been within the covers of a single book. Then there is the website. And the website creating, no, I'm sorry. I'm even blocking on the name of the website. It's behavioral-scientist, thank you. behavioral-scientist.com. What you can get at that is a reminder of the sessions, because on the website, not only material, the highlights of the book and so on, but recordings of what we're doing in the seminar. All these sessions are recorded and they're right on the website. So if you have a friend, for example, and you're trying to interest him or her, you can say, go to the website, listen to some of the talks and see how do you feel about it. So that's, all right, now we're getting toward the present. And then the seminar. And where I'm trying to, for example, the difference between today, let me give an example, because we're improving, I think, as we go from one session to the next. Here is an improvement, as I see it, of today versus previously. Remember at the very beginning, I was talking in a more complicated way about a seesaw and a stairway. That's okay as far as it goes in terms of the bureaucratic way of life and the evolutionary way of life. Now I can say more simply, I'm not saying that's unimportant, I'm just saying there's a simpler way of understanding that our present bureaucratic way of life, part of it is specialization, and so the whole emphasis on knowledge versus ignorance is exactly an orientation to get away from that narrow specialization. What were the other 2 things I emphasize now? Because what I'm going to be doing is showing how knowledge can take care of those other 2 things. Hierarchy. I was emphasizing hierarchy. Well, why is there hierarchy? Well, I'm not answering that completely, of course, but what I'm saying is a lot of hierarchy, maybe most of it, is based on scarcity. There's a limited amount of money or goods or whatever, so who gets it? Me or you? It's like the seesaw. Well, if you have the knowledge of how to produce, to be productive, then you get away from scarcity, you get away from the necessity. It's a long-term thing I'm talking about, of course, and a difficult thing, but the scarcity is the basis for the hierarchy. You can get away from scarcity. And in the book, there are all kinds of examples, like the Marshall Plan or what happened in Japan after war, Kaizen idea, where productivity could be continually increased under certain conditions. The human being has that potential. What was the third leg that we had before that are now simplifying? Well, the third leg was conformity. This was an outward orientation. You go with the flow. You conform to what the leader is saying. Well, that neglects yourself. That's just like the Levin experiment, where the conformity leads to the seesaw and the aggression. So you conform. The knowledge about yourself, the knowledge of human behavior, is an alternative to that. We don't need that. We can learn, just like the Levin experiment, we can continue to develop ourselves and get away from aggression and scarcity and a bureaucratic way of life. So you see, the example I'm giving is this. It's not just that I'm coming in here with the set ideas, this is how to change the world. I'm saying we're doing it here and now. And now I'm going to go into the future and what we can do in the future. All right, beyond this, first of all, the most important thing that we can do is together develop a new book. Tentative title: Creating a New Social Science. Creating a new social science. The new social science would get away from the narrow specialization that we have of the different social sciences. As a matter of fact, I'm actually planning to develop a section, one of the 50, a new section of the American Social Association called Behavioral Science, which is, I have to get a whole bunch of sociologists to get on my side. That's fine. There are ways of doing it. I can get it into academia, but that's only one small thing in terms of a new social science. New is very important because it's not going to be narrow like our present social sciences are. I'm not putting down our present social sciences that much. I'm saying tremendous amounts of knowledge all over the place in the different social sciences. Let's get it together. Let's get it between the covers of a book, and it's going to be more systematic, but more important than just systematic. The big lack that this seminar I'm pointing toward, and then there are other things I'm going to be mentioning, is, okay, well, that knowledge, how do you get it into yourself? Wow, that's a whole different matter. The action orientation. And that's one of the things that is already set up where we're going to continue this session, not every week, but once a month, and I'm going to give you the timing on it right now. The second Tuesday of every month, starting June 13th, 2 to 3:30, for the foreseeable future. We have work to do to be able to get these ideas, to learn the ideas, to get them, to develop your own experiences, to get your experience unpublished into the book as a joint effort, and then to publish it at some point. And I don't know how long it'll take. For the foreseeable, I'm not thinking of a multi-year thing. I'm thinking of, it's a matter of like a year, we can get a new book published that will include, to the extent that you can want to come in and with your own positive and negative experiences of what? Of trying to solve problems, develop yourself, your failures, why your failures, why your successes, that kind of thing. And that's in the future. So let me see what else is in the future. I call this a workshop for creating a new social science. Monthly. The workshop, okay. Secondly, then there's the new book, a new social science, and then we can start a movement, a social movement. Not just a book, not just ourselves, but widening. Now this is, what are we doing with that? I mean, how could we possibly do that? Think of it. If indeed we have the answer that Auguste Comte was looking for in terms of a powerful science of human behavior, that's what the world desperately needs now. If we have that as an answer. Wow. Is that on TV now? Is that in the media now? No. If we have that as an answer, that can spread rapidly. But the key thing, our whole focus is automatically going to be teach others immediately. We have to teach ourselves. Today, for the first time of the seminar, I feel before, I'm a little different today from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago I felt, yeah, I can keep developing, sure, that's fine, I can keep doing that. Today I feel differently. I feel like Atlas. The world is on my back, the world is on your back, waiting for us to come up with a solution that doesn't exist out there. It's not there. Look for it. Tell me it's there. Give me an example of where is it? Where is there a vision? We have a vision. Let me give you an example of the vision. I'm walking for exercise outside here somewhere. Someone else is walking for exercise near me. Fine. We're both concerned with our health. But I'm concerned with my evolution with no limit. In addition, now, further, that was then, now it's even more. I'm concerned on my back, like Atlas, is the globe. I damn well better succeed, because if I don't, look what's happening. If we don't, is there a solution to the global warming? Where is it? Is there a solution to nuclear war? It's not just the last decades. Go back to Hitler. Go back to the 20th century. We had such a narrow escape from fascism at that time. It could have been different. Churchill didn't have to be there and get his people to fight Nazism. He didn't have to be there. He happened to be there. We have had narrow escapes for several centuries now, very narrow. And sooner or later, it's not going to work unless we figure something out. Now, let me just check to see. I haven't covered what I planned at all. It's a little different. But let me just check to see where we are before discussions. I had all kinds of images. We don't have time for that now. I want to open it up for discussion. And let's see what else. Just a few reminders here. Okay, I'm asking you to see if you can get someone else interested in joining us. If you are interested in continuing our journey every month, it's not going to be the same old, same old. We will make progress in developing a book. I need your help. I can't do it alone. And we need other people's help. And we need them to help us with still other people. Remember the 3-minute video? One person got up and started dancing in a crazy way, and everyone was making fun of him. Then another person, and then a third, fourth, and so on. We can start the crazy dance, and we can get other people to join us. Yeah.
So,
Wait a second. There's a microphone.
Thank you. Okay, let's say that we have the power to get together and develop this book. How are we, not too many of us, how are we going to have the intellectual power and marketability to have others want to read this book or consult it?
The key thing is this. Remember the guy who got up and started dancing? Why did people join that guy? Because he was having so much fun. He was enjoying life. He was expressing himself. If you and others here and me can illustrate, my God, there's more to life than what we've been doing. We can develop. We don't have to all do the same thing. We can do this, that. And it's open to anyone to come in and join us and start dancing with us. In other words, we can demonstrate. It's a wonderful thing that I'm starting here at Plymouth Harbor rather than a profit-making organization. Because there immediately would be, well, how are you making more money? How are you producing more right away? No, what we have to do and what we can do and what I think we will do is demonstrate in our own lives. The focus has to be on you. It can't be, see, what you're asking is a perfect example of the way we normally think. How do we help others? How do we get others interested? Yes, we can get others interested, but the focus has to be on ourselves. If you can stay with this, learn what Auguste Comte tried to teach, develop the power of a science of human behavior, a new social science, and learn to fulfill it doesn't have to be everyone does the same thing politically or economically. You can go this way, someone else can go another way, that's fine. But if we can demonstrate the power of this, that it works for us, others will join us. And it's one step at a time. Let's focus on, here's a community, Plymouth Harbor, your friends, people around us. Let's demonstrate the potential. I'm claiming that we have knowledge that doesn't exist out there. It's integrated knowledge. It's what Auguste Comte dreamed of, the power of human behavior, just the power of a science of human behavior. We like to think, oh, physics is powerful, chemistry is powerful. A science of human behavior can be incredibly powerful for enabling people to solve personal and world problems. So it's a question of demonstrating it. We don't have to succeed immediately. Hey, come on in, the water's fine. No, focus on yourself. Develop it more in yourself. That's what I'm trying to do for myself. If I didn't develop further today, you would have been presented, oh, that's the same old thing. I've heard it already. It's just the same. It's not the same. I'm saying we have the world on our shoulders. It's up to us. There's nothing out there that I'm aware of that pulls together the kind of powerful knowledge that we're talking about. We have it. It's up to us. It's right there. I can take this around, I think. Well, why don't you do it? Better for me to stand up here.
Bernie, when I left a couple of weeks ago, after talking with one of the classmates for a while, you were
Hold it up a little
you were
closer.
being interviewed by someone writing an article, I guess, about you. Has that appeared anywhere?
Oh, yes. That has appeared. I mean, hasn't appeared. I asked the guy, Iswabi, he works for the Observer. It will appear this Thursday for the Sarasota Observer. Either the Sarasota and possibly also the Longboat Key Observer. I have a copy right here. I can show it to you after. That was on the internet. It's a long article, so it's right there. That helps, of course. Here are some other ideas, by the way. I haven't told you all of them. I haven't covered all of them. I'm planning to write to people all over the place. I'm going to even write to Jill Biden about education. You know, that's a long shot. I'm going to write to Hollywood agents. Maybe we can get a famous person to come in with us. My feeling is I've got the goods. I've got something to sell that isn't out there. And I can come on strongly. And they can look at this seminar on YouTube. Another idea is, what is that? A TED Talk. I will apply to do a TED Talk. There's lots of things I'm planning to do now that the weekly seminar is over. For me, this is the most important part of my life, is now. And this is the most exciting part of my life. There was, Robert Browning wrote, the poet, the English poet, "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be." And I think that can be true for everyone, not just people of our age. Everyone has this incredible potential. Now, the floor is open. I'm anxious to find out, negative as well as positive. Please feel free to come up. Did you want to say something?
No, I'm scratching my arm.
Okay. Okay, scratch away. Anyone else who wants to come in? Go ahead. Because we've hardly had much of a discussion here.
Well, this is a little bit off, maybe not, but I'm wondering, given the Darwin's theory, how have we or how will we change and as age goes on? Have we changed? Are we changing?
Okay. I'm not too good at answering that, but I'll do the best I can because I've been focusing more on the near term rather than the far. But it's a tremendously important question. I have a potential. Did you want to comment on that?
And then this whole thing of AI, where that
AI.
seems
All right, let me.
artificial intelligence, is that going
Absolutely.
to stop the progress,
Okay.
or is that going to enhance?
Okay. All right. So, let's see. What was your question again?
Well, my question was regarding Darwinian theory and
Okay.
how man is evolving. When does he stop?
Okay.
Or how?
And what we want to look at the future. Both questions have to do. Let's get more of a handle on the future and not just focus on now. That's fine. Let me see if I can handle that. Let's see now. Okay, here's one idea. And I'll save the artificial intelligence for later. And this is a very important notion of, okay, we have organizations of all kinds, all over the place. Political, economic, religious, you name it. All right. What is the future of organizations? We can talk about the same for the family and so on and so forth, but let's focus on organizations. Now, the key idea behind what I've been talking about all today is the idea of science and the scientific method. Wow, because science doesn't have to be just a narrow physicalist non-humanistic science. It can be a human science, a science of human behavior. Okay, how would organizations look as if this idea keeps developing? All right, there have been studies by sociologists of organizations throughout the world. As a matter of fact, years ago, they're developed in the social sciences, not just sociology, what was called the Human Relations Area Files. This was knowledge of organizations in small societies, big societies, over history, hundreds and hundreds of organizations. And one of the studies that I'm referring to had to do with which organizations were more scientific versus less. Now, how do you indicate scientific? Well, for example, science is a community thing. People publish and interact with one another and stand on the shoulders of giants, so that those organizations that had fewer levels of hierarchy and more possibility for interaction of the people near the bottom or the middle with the people at the top, that is closer to a more scientific organization. So as we move into the future, we will have, and those organizations were more effective than the others. To the degree that organizations become more scientific in the way they're organized, and what is that interaction, the knowledge that people near the bottom have is not zilch, but is important knowledge. And so it isn't that immediately, okay, there's no more leader, everyone is a leader. No, one step at a time. And more interaction, less hierarchy, the people at the bottom earning not just a minuscule percentage of what the people at the bottom, but they are rewarded and encouraged financially for their increasing participation. So there is a vision. That doesn't answer your artificial intelligence, that's coming up. So the notion I have, we have to work on this as a group. To how is the future? What is the future going to look like if this keeps going? I don't know. I just have these vague ideas like what I'm putting forward now. Artificial intelligence, let me shift to that now. And one of the reasons why it's so threatening is that we don't have a vision of anything other than physical science, mathematics, physical science. That's our vision of science. We don't have a vision of a human science to open up the power of every individual. We program the artificial intelligence. We are now some might say, well, the program is going to get away because the thing that's programmed wants to program itself, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying I have a real answer for it. I just have a direction that we are our own development is crucial to stay ahead of the narrow things that artificial intelligence can do. They can't do what we can do. Now you might say, well, wait, they can play chess pretty goddamn well, but life is not chess, and we can do much better. And the reason why it's a threat is the failure for what we're doing, the lack of what we're doing leads to that question of, oh, well, the machines are going to take over. Because we have not continued to develop ourselves. And there's no limit to how far we can develop. And as a matter of fact, let me not just put down the AI, because we can make use of AI to carry forward our ideas. But we can be in control of it, and it can help to develop us more rapidly. We can make use of AI to increase our own powers. We can do that. It doesn't have to be just something out there. There's someone out there.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today. My question, I haven't read your book. I do have a question, though, as I listen to what you're saying. How does your theory deal with the hypocrisy that each of us has when we're making decisions? And when you were even talking about the organization compared to the individual, I studied business, and I was a business person. But as an example, the same people who can complain about a social issue, if their stock goes down because a business leader made a different decision, they may feel scared. We're sitting in a tower in a paradise. You know, we feel protected here. And these are ideal, these are very ideal
Right. This is
thoughts.
a very special place here.
It's a very ideal
protected
thought.
place.
My question is it's easy to theorize things, but yet when it comes to us, it seems as though we hypocritically, when we need our fence built, all of a sudden it doesn't matter how the laborer got across the border. When someone's paying our rent, it doesn't seem to matter. If someone is breathing up dust, maybe that was their choice at that point. So it's ideal. It's very idealistic to believe that we have these solutions, yet I think that even us are blinded sometimes. How does this sociological viewpoint answer some of these questions, especially hypocrisy of the individual?
All right. Let's start with, there were several things. One of them is the hypocrisy, and then, okay. Let me say, first of all, I hope to get more of an answer to your question. I have only tiny partial answers. But this is the kind of question that we have to work on. And what we have to work on is, more specifically, is if we are making progress, how can we keep going? What is our vision of changing things outside of our protected environment here? All right, I have very few answers on that, but let me do what I can do here. Now, in one of the earlier sessions, I don't know which one, I was talking about things that got in my way in terms of my own development. And one of the things was I was telling myself, I can't, who the hell am I? I'm nothing. In other words, things that I've learned all my life were deep down in me. And so to be able to bring that out and be able to first become aware of it, that's number one. It's very hard to even become aware of it. But to become aware of it and then to turn it around. Okay, I just felt I'm not, who am I? I'm nothing. And then turning it around, wait a second, what have I done in my life? I've written all these books. I've done these lectures. I've done this, I've done that. So turning it around. So becoming aware of it and turning it around. That is very difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it can be done because I've been able to do it and I think it can be taught. Very difficult because all our lives we've been victims of this hypocrisy. But if I see, or someone else sees, someone else conquering that and giving examples of how it can be done. And this is, as a matter of fact, more specifically, this is what the new book has to emphasize. The old book that you have does not emphasize. So what do? That's what the new book has to emphasize, exactly. What do we do to deal with that? Now, your question was more than that. The whole world is organized in a certain way, and one question is, well, in terms of business, or how is this going to affect business? Can it affect business? Because here we're in this is a business, of course, but it's a very special kind of business that we're in now. And the key thing from my perspective is productivity is the name of the game in business. That it has already been shown, and it's in the book here, whether it be the Marshall Plan in Europe or the Kaizen idea in Japan after World War II, productivity can be increased. And not just the way it was done there, because what we're talking about is a much broader approach, not just economic productivity. Imagine the kind of productivity, which is what we're talking about, where it's not just economic, but it's in life, one's enjoyment of life, one's ability to express.
Examples was total devastation. I like Deming's idea of the new economics.
Whose idea, I'm sorry?
W. Edwards Deming.
Demi.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
He was a statistician. But my thing is,
Wait,
those were-
tell us about that. Tell us about that. Demi's idea.
His concept was, I think it's in line, that our competitors are sometimes our partners because we share similar visions. And yet we have to find a way for us all to step forward instead of driving each other as a race to the bottom. He was a good statistician, actually, in some of the times that you're mentioning.
What that relates to, from my perspective, early in the seminar, I showed the seesaw and the stairway, the vision of a stairway with steps wide enough for the whole human race that doesn't get narrower as it moves up, where you can move across to different specialties and learn from them and teach others. That sounds like that I think that a key idea there is, can we move away from scarcity with increasing productivity? And the notion I have is not just the productivity that was illustrated in Japan or Germany after World War II, but the kind of productivity we're talking about in this place. Productivity with regard to human development, enjoyment of life, expression, artistic expression, all kinds of people enjoying life and being able to teach others to do it. Of course, this is incredibly idealistic. And of course, we don't know whether or not it can expand.
Millennials may be doing it because there's a lot of argument, even myself looking at the social ways that people communicate. It's a dance, it's a song, it's an open mind, it's a creativity. From what you just described, it may already be happening.
Well, I'm sure it's happening to some extent here, there, and elsewhere, all over the place. What I'm adding is the idea of continuing development without limit. And in order to move there, how do you develop that vision? The key to it, from my perspective, is a powerful science of human behavior. We've never had it. Imagine it being in the hands of the individual and not just out there among specialists with PhDs. That's the vision that I have, is that we can develop that idea ourselves. We'll see.
I'm not positive of this, but I think Pareto might have been thinking about this, and before he actually died, Mussolini might have turned it into something.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because I read very little of Pareto, but that was a long time ago. I'll have to look that up. Well, it's 3:15, and I think some of you are going to have to leave, and I'll be around for a little bit more if anyone wants to ask me any questions or talk to me or whatever. But hand in if you haven't handed in your questionnaire, I think we've collected them already. But I thank you once again for being here. Next time, June 13th, 2 to 3:30, same time, same place. June 13th, the second Tuesday of every month, starting in